and I'm happy to move this bill, and I particularly welcome the Minister. I want to thank Seanad colleagues, and particularly all who have been supportive to ensure we have a presentable bill before you this evening. My thanks to my Seanad CEG colleagues, Colette Keller and Lynn Ryan, for doing the honours in the first stage. Also thanks to the people who now need to use these changes and the many others that are affected by these particular areas. In particular, I want to mention the Oireachtas Office of Parliamentary Legal Affairs for translating my objectives into a format fit for consideration by both houses of the Oireachtas. Like the John West ad from many years back, where what John West rejects makes John West the best, we too rejected many drafts to get to the bill that's before you this evening. We are offering it as a clear and balanced bill in keeping with Ireland's ratification of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and which serves progressive inclusion of people with disabilities, yet does not trample on the rights or freedoms of other people. In the past and still, the rights of people with disabilities were and are often overlooked, and that's putting it mildly. Adjustment is necessary, and this bill is our best effort to put before you a measured prescription to right some of those wrongs, and best of all, to give people with disabilities and their families fair play, not only in the playground, but also through the provision of safe and comfortable public sanitary facilities, full accessible public bus travel and access to critical social services. Very quickly, the bill playgrounds are dealt with in sections 1 and 2. Currently, many families cannot enjoy a trip to the playground together, as children with disabilities are often excluded from play with their siblings and peers due to the lack of accessible and inclusive play equipment in their local playground. This bill will provide the opportunity for side-by-side play with families, friends and peers, and it requires local authorities to follow the principles of universal design. It will also apply to plans or initiatives which include playgrounds or play equipment as part of approved schemes or part of a scheme for business improvement district. The principles of universal design are not new, and I'm happy to see that Minister Zappone is utilising these principles for early learning and care settings to make these settings more inclusive and welcoming for all family members and staff. Section 3, advocacy, ensures that advocates supporting people with disabilities to access social services, certain social services, have statutory powers through the appointment of a Director of Personal Advocacy as legislated for in the Citizens Information Act 7. And sadly, this has not been commenced. Transport, currently the NTA, that's section 4, can give a licence to a private bus operator to operate on a public scheduled route. However, private bus operators are not required to meet the same accessibility standards of public bus operators, such as Bus Éireann. Changing places and accessible change facilities, section 5 of the bill. This is to improve the current accessibility building standards, as they do not meet the needs of many people with profound disabilities. This bill changes the current standard so that a changing places facility is provided in addition to the usual toilet facilities. The alternative to not correcting the standard is to say to parents and carers and people themselves that it is okay for you to continue to change your child, your teen, your adult on a toilet floor, something we consider to be abhorrent. Currently in Ireland there are just 11 registered changing places. 8 of these are in Dublin. In the UK there are 1,300, Northern Ireland has 27. I will put it on the record, the changing places currently in place and those who are planning for the next stages. National Gallery of Ireland, our neighbours here, Áras an Uachtaráin, IKEA, National Heritage Park in Wexford, Trinity College Dublin, the Lime Tree Theatre and the Mary Immaculate College in Limerick, Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, the Marley Park Craft Courtyard in Rathfarnham, Dundrum Town Centre, Athboy Convent Community Centre in Athboy and Meath, Dublin Airport in Terminal 1, and committed to Naas Library, Clare County Library, Dublin Zoo, Fairview Park, Tea Room, St Anne's Park in Raheny, University College Cork in the new Student Hub, and the National Children's Hospital. This bill is grounded in the reality that many people with disabilities are now left out of equal participation to a number of barriers. Public benefit and public good will be better served by the over time adjustments that this bill proposes. While the 4 areas to be advanced in the bill are practical and tangible, there's more going on here. So I want to stress this for a minute. Firstly, the bill will change culture and attitude. Sometimes that starts on the streets, like Rosa Luxemburg when she said in effect, "To hell with sitting in the back of the bus, just because I have black skin." Today, I hope we will make progress in this House because we get it that people can't experience the public realm or be on the bus with dignity without these changes. We as senators know that the simple human dignity of people needs practical support. The Nazi regime was able to exterminate up to 300,000 people with disabilities with ease. These innocent victims mainly came from Germany and Austria. Yet for the extermination of people of the Jewish faith, they had to spend nearly a decade stripping them of their humanity in a number of ways. The Nuremberg laws took a number of years to complete. A critical part of that programme were measures to publicly humiliate people. Public humiliation came before quiet extermination. Let me be very clear. In no way is it the instinct, or has it been the instinct, of any Irish government to be a willing party to such policy. My point in raising this is public affirmation and celebration of participation in the community is the most potent antidote to the slippery road of special and separate and other that easily leads to, well, aren't they different really? That is so far from what our Dáil unanimously signed up to on the 7th of March 2018 when it agreed to ratify the CRPD. In May 17, the year earlier, I wrote to the candidates who wished to step into the shoes of Taoiseach and Kenny and simply outlined that the promised ratification of the Convention had not taken place. The reply a few days later was positive. Leo Varadkar committed to ratification by year end. The Dáil then delivered on that in March 2018. This bill is an opportunity for this House to breathe life and outcomes into those decisions by making it easier for people with disabilities and their families to do ordinary things in ordinary places in a respectful and dignified manner. This is a powerful message for inclusion also. On the 14th of June 2017, the Taoiseach informed the Dáil as follows, while concluding his statement on the nomination of ministers, and I quote, "As Minister of State, Deputy Finian McGrath remains Minister with responsibility for disabilities across several departments. As a government, we are renewing our commitment to ratify the UN CRPD this year." And he continued by saying, "It will be a genuine partnership government that works to improve the lives of all our citizens and all parts of this country." This bill provides a practical suite of measures to demonstrate that people with disabilities are included, and it supports folk right across the country. The other opportunity we have this evening is that all of us as senators would act in partnership to support those in our communities who need to benefit from these measures. Last week I, as CEO of the Disability Federation of Ireland, was honoured to be part of Ireland's delegation to the UN Conference of States Parties to the CRPD. I spoke in the general debate. I noted that departments and public bodies in Ireland and elsewhere are not designed well or practiced enough to operate horizontally to maximise person-centred outcomes. This bill involving 3 departments brings this issue to light. I said that results for people with disabilities are often modest in compared to the efforts put in. I then said, and I quote, "Ireland is serious about implementation and wants to make progress." So I am now in the hands of my Seanad colleagues to ensure that this bill gets through this House and subsequently enacted. And more importantly, that Minister McGrath can go back to the UN this time next year and report the enactment of this legislation along with other measures. This leads me to my second point. This bill challenges the traditional way which legislation is approached. Bills so often focus around one department. For decades we've had the mantra of person-centred public services. This bill builds on legislative foundations already in place, and we could not have constructed the bill without them. Things such as universal design through the National Disability Authority Act 1999, Local Government Act 2001, Planning and Development Act 2000, the Public Transportation Act 2009 and the Building Regulations 97 are the taking off points for this bill. What this bill does is to change the perspective by starting with the day-to-day lived experience of people with disabilities and their families. Its core is to make the path towards equal, easy and valued participation in the public realm a reality. This reinforces the worth and role of people with disabilities. The three parties involved, Employment Affairs, Social Protection, Housing, Planning and Local Government, and Transport, Tourism and Sport, will all of necessity be contributing. Having said that, this bill needs to be dealt with as a whole, where the four elements are threaded together from a person and community-centred perspective. In that context, it is significant and welcome that Minister Finian McGrath, who holds the disability brief and currently participates at Cabinet, is taking this bill. This bill is not just about people with disabilities and their families. It is also about the rest of the community. It is equally about not having to be ashamed or embarrassed that our brothers and sisters in the family which our state strives to be under our Constitution do not continue to be outside ordinary participation in ordinary places. I'm winding up, Cathal. I anchored the bill in the commitment of An Taoiseach when he was appointed. Let me now go back briefly 1 century. The Irish Republic, and I quote, realises the necessity of abolishing the present odious, degrading and foreign poor law system, substituting therefore a sympathetic native scheme for the care of the nation's aged and infirm, who shall not be regarded as a burden but rather entitled to the gratitude, the nation's gratitude and consideration. That's from the 5th of 8 paragraphs in the text of the democratic programme that was passed in the Mansion House on the first sitting of our first Dáil on the 21st of January, 100 years ago. We have an opportunity in this centenary year to also honour the clear and simple intent of those members of that first Dáil, and in doing so, to more so honour the dignity and simple humanity of some of our citizens in this republic. Garamagus, and thanks for your tolerance.
Thank you very much, Senator Dolan.